You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by Nax. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Brand positioning is a significant part of business because it's ultimately about how you communicate with customers. And that is whether you're a retailer or whether you're a supplier to a retailer. Ultimately, does it resonate? We're going to talk today about some pitfalls that people make and what you need to do to avoid them. Joining us today to talk about how to avoid pitfalls related to brand positioning is Kathy Guzmán Galloway. She is known as the head wizard at the Clarity Wizard. So thanks for joining us today.
I'm really excited to be here. Thanks, Jeff.
So I gave a very broad definition of what brand positioning is. I think some people know what it is. Some people assume what it is, but do you want to kind of give us the overview of how you look at brand positioning and how you define it?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question because in actuality, everyone is talking about brand positioning all of the time. You just don't realize that that's what that is. We don't name it that way. So if you're sitting around talking about who's the right customer, what are the kinds of people that are coming into my store, into my footprint? What is it that makes me different than my competitive set? What makes me different than the other stores that this customer could choose from? And why is it that I am pulling this person in? What is it that is compelling about my store that is pulling this person in? All of those things are brand positioning. And to state it in a simple way, brand positioning is how the consumer imagines your brand amongst all of the other brands available to them. And I think for brands that are really hoping to go to that next level of brand positioning, I'd push it even further, which is how do I connect with the heart and mind of the consumer? And all of that is an effort to build a long-lasting relationship with a consumer, which many C-store, or a number of C-store brands do really, really good job of doing that. And others have the potential to really do that.
So ultimately, I mentioned this a couple times to reporters or on this program. If you can have somebody tattoo your brand on their body,
exactly,
you've won. And we've seen
you're done there. You could just close up shop and move on.
So whether it's a retail outlet or whether it's a product, that's really how you connect. And we'll talk about some of the pitfalls in a little bit, but just kind of want to set it up a little bit more. Like within our industry, everybody has a name. And there's upwards of 90,000 convenience stores. There's some that very well, 7-Eleven, named after the original hours of operation, which was 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Kind of made sense. But in a lot of the other brands in our industry initially came out of the idea of immediate consumption, quick, easy, fast, and all those derivations where you could possibly misspell it. Because in the beginning, convenience wasn't really well understood. So you had to communicate that it's all about getting in and out of that store in under 4 minutes. That was really important. The other thing you saw a lot of companies that would base their name on the name of the guy running the store or woman running the store. Back in the olden days, it tended to be the man. So those were kind of the two things. And lately we've seen a little bit with brands is what else should be in that name? Because after 90 some years of convenience stores, most people get that you should be fast. It's kind of a non-starter. If you're the slow mart, you're not going to succeed.
Right.
Fast, quick, easy, all those things work. So you're seeing things like market, you're seeing things like communicating more about what the products are inside the store. How important is it? And you focused on consumer brands, both at the retail level and particularly at the manufacturer level. Some of the brands like Nature Made Lay's, Chiki Chiki Boom Boom, etc. How important is the name in the process? And is there a process when you look at brand positioning?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And before I touch on the name, I want to react to something that is an underlying theme in this question, which is there were ways we did it before and there are ways we do it now. And what is important about that perspective is that brand positioning is never static. It's never static because the consumer, because the customer, because the world is never static. So what was okay even 5 years ago, and think pre-pandemic, is no longer, it's not that it's not okay, I shouldn't use that term, it's just not relevant. The world has sort of evolved through that, and customers demand different things today than they did before. And so in that way, oftentimes the name is less important than how you execute, particularly in convenience, because, the convenience store, different than other retail channels, plays a very specific role in the life of the customer. It exists in a moment in time, in an occasion, in a part of my day and of my process that in many ways feels completely agnostic and irrelevant to what the retailer is and what they're doing. It's on the corner on my way to the office. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's really all that matters to me in that moment in time, right? And so in that way, there's less impact on the name. However, to think strategically about connecting with a consumer's heart and mind, which ultimately is our goal, to have someone put a tattoo on their body of your brand store's name, it requires another level of connection to that customer. Not to say that it's necessary for success. There are many brands out there that are doing quite well with names that maybe don't do that. But the ones that go above and beyond, that makes a difference, right? The Wawas of the world that always get pulled up as the example. Wawa means nothing to a normal consumer. Mm-hmm. It has no meaning, but it is unique enough that it connects with the experience and the idea of what that retailer is bringing to the table. So if your brand name cannot communicate a benefit, like you talked about, there are markets, other names that are trying to communicate what we offer, then a unique name allows you to take ownership of the word and have that be connected with the brand promise, the experience of what you are delivering to that customer.
Yeah, Kathy, you hit upon why people come to convenience stores, solving a problem quickly. Oftentimes, it's a right-hand turn on the way to something else.
Right.
It's oftentimes not like when a new store opens, sometimes zoning people say, well, it's just going to add traffic. Mm. Oftentimes, it's that right-hand turn going between point A and point B, as opposed to somebody going from home to store back to the home. It certainly does happen, but the majority are on their way, right-hand turn. What we've seen lately is when we ask people about what they would do, would they save 5 cents a gallon by driving 5 minutes out of their way? Yes, because everyone always cares about gas price. Mm-hmm. But we've also seen a slightly higher percentage would drive 5 minutes out of their way to go to the store they like. And we phrase the question that way because it could be about the people. It could be about the products, but ultimately it's about the brand. And people will shop the brand and they will go multiple stores within that brand until somebody gives them a reason not to. Mm. But that's the power of the brand. It's not that you mentioned Wawa. It's not that my favorite Wawa is in this exact location, but that's one of 1,000 of them. And now I'm part of the community of I'm going to think about that store when I'm on my journeys outside of that area. So that's really what brand positioning is, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe what a brand is. I think for folks that are not marketers, they run a C-store business and they know the retail world. They may not know branding and they don't need to. They need to know just enough. But you hear the word brand and it feels elusive and it feels unnecessary and sort of fanciful, right? But what I would challenge the audience to swap out the word brand for promise. Brand and promise. What that means is the reason I will go to a Wawa or a McDonald's or a Starbucks or a Macy's anywhere in the world is because I have an expectation of what the promise is that they are going to deliver to me. And my comfort with that experience I've already had is what brings me back in the door in some other place. There's nothing better than being on a road trip and feeling like I have no idea where I am. I don't know who lives here. The radio stations are terrible. Now you know how old I am, that back in the day, we were listening to radio stations on road trips.
And you turned a knob.
That's right. And you're like, these stations are terrible. I need to get home. And you're in this unknown place, and you find yourself at a 7-Eleven or a Wawa or a Publix or a space where you feel like, I know what's here, a McDonald's. I know what I'm going to get. There's a sense of comfort in that experience is going to be the same that I expect always. That is the power of the promise. That is the power of really knowing the audience, what they're looking for in that moment, in that experience, and how you can deliver on that better than someone else. And in many ways, to just tap back to our conversation on naming, in many ways, the name is not the end all and be all. And I want to come back to that because a lot of these convenience stores across the country, they've had the same name for 150 years. You don't need to change your name to solve a problem. Unless your name is doing more harm than it is good, it's not really about the name. It's about what the name represents. It's about that promise that you're making that experience is going to deliver for me.
So, Kathy, we talk a lot in our industry, and I'm sure all other industries do, about the importance of failure, the importance of learning from failure. And in innovation, you want to fail roughly one third of the time, because if you're not trying hard. However, if you're failing on your promise, that's not a failure you want to have happen. And we teed up things by saying you're gonna give us some tips about ineffective brand positioning, and that's because part of the clarity wizard, you're the head wizard. Your job is to add clarity for how do you position best. So let's start with tip number 1 in how do you add clarity to your brand positioning, so that promise is as easily understood as possible by somebody who may be visiting your store for the first time and is running in and out in under 4 minutes.
Talk about a challenge, huh?
Yes, the clock is ticking.
Yeah. So one of the most obvious problems or obstacles that a retailer, a C-store retailer would face in not delivering on the promise is that your customers have no idea what the name of your place is. And again, back to naming, it's not that the name has to be some incredible, perfect, wonderful thing, but if literally all they're doing is making that right turn, getting their gas, running and getting a cup of coffee that is unbranded, they don't even know what it is, getting in the car, running off, they get to work and someone says, "Where'd you get this coffee?" "Oh, I don't know, this place around my corner." This place around my corner is the call of death. You have failed in that moment if they're saying just some random place around the corner. And so figuring out how to leave an impression on that customer, on that shopper, that will carry with them beyond the store is one of the first indications that you've made an imprint on them that is long lasting and will give you dividends, right? And there are a number of ways to do that. Obviously, making sure that the signage is correct so that they can see the name wherever they go. That includes branding, cups and napkins and receipts, teaching the staff to thank you for coming to Kathy's C-store. We appreciate that, reiterating the name. So finding ways to continue to impress upon them where they are. I'd say that would be the first of those issues. And I wonder if that's something you resonate with in just dealing with your audience.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you think about convenience stores, oftentimes the thing that's most prominent is the gas price. The second most prominent thing is the gas brand. And the third most prominent thing is the store brand. So
right. Going
back to your comment about just around the corner, you failed in the brand promise. If Jeff tells Kathy, "You need to go to this place," it's like, what's it called? It's, I don't know, but the gas was $3.26 today. That's good until it's a different price, or it's the only price that's ever been $3.26.
Right.
So, or it's than if you were to say, but it's this gas brand. Yeah, that's a little better. But ultimately, if you want to drive people to the store and inside the store, you're going to find ways, as you said, to make that brand central. So yes, the gas price is important, but if they trust your brand, they trust that your gas price is as competitive as possible.
Yeah, that brings, I think, to the next point on positioning is what you're describing there when we're talking about gas prices and the customer showing up for gas is what we would call the table stakes. So this we can compare to other retail, if we take grocery, for example, and that's milk and eggs. I got to get milk and eggs. It is what it is. And for most of those are loss leaders, and they have the ability to leverage price to do that. It's a little different in C-store, obviously. But I want to come to the second point, starting with this idea of gas, right? If we're thinking about gas at a C-store, I'm going to equate it to what happens in the grocery channel. In the grocery channel, people are shopping for milk and eggs. That's why I go to the grocery store. And retailers on traditional grocery side, they are not marketing milk and eggs. That is not what Kroger stands for. That's not what Walmart stands for. That's not what Target stands for. They don't stand for milk and eggs. They stand for the rest of the complementary experience and products and service that come along with that shopping behavior. So while gas is an important component of and maybe for many of your customers, the primary reason they are coming into your space, that is not the thing that's going to make you stand out. So if you are spending your time communicating about price on gas, you are playing a losing game because gas prices are going to change. You don't have control over them. Anyone else can have 5 cents less than you. And while you absolutely need to stay on top of what is happening with gas prices and understanding what those dynamics are, that is a piece of the puzzle. That allows you to just stay in the game. But what allows you to go and win the game is everything else. And so understanding what brings someone out of their car, away from the gas pump, and into your physical store footprint is at the core of brand positioning. You need to know who these people are and why they chose to come in. There is a large percentage, I don't know the C channel well enough to know what percent of traffic is typically just getting gas. Whoever those people are, great. Let's make gas convenient and easy and low cost for them. But that is not my priority. My priority are the people who get gas and come into the store. What does that person need? What are they looking for? Convenience is not a thing to talk about anymore because it is literally the premise of the reason they're there. So what else are you bringing to the table that makes me want to come into this store and give you my hard-earned dollars? What kinds of products? What is the service? What is new and unique and interesting that makes me come in? And I would encourage your audience to do a little bit of an audit. Take a week and ask your employees or you yourself spend time at the front of the store or any number of your stores and start to take stock. Take a look at the kind of people that don't come in. Take a look at the people that stay in their car. Is there anything about them that makes them unique? Or I shouldn't say unique, but that makes them similar to each other. Perhaps you find everyone with a suit, these people don't come in. They get their gas and they run off. They're too busy. They're not interested. Perhaps it's moms that are actually coming in. Do they have kids in the car or not? Do these people look like they are on their way to work or they're on the way to the gym? Do they look like they are hungry or do they look like they're satisfied? What is it about these people that makes them unique? And the same thing for the people that are coming into the store. What is it about them that seems similar? And what are the kinds of things that they are buying that helps to tell a story about the average person coming into the store? And it's important to know that there's an average because there are going to be 1,000 reasons why people come in, but we're looking for some sort of consistent story so that you can understand that person and why they are coming in and what they specifically want.
And with bigger companies that have apps, certainly technology can play a big role in identifying who these people are. But there is great benefit in that physical
100%
confirmation, particularly in our industry with smaller stores. And quick story, about 15 years ago, I was talking to a retailer in Iowa. She had one store and she did exactly what you suggested and sat on a bench all week and watched customers. And a couple things she noticed. One is about 1 in 5 use the bathroom before they shopped. And we have the latest consumer data. We're going to be talking about this in the May issue of the magazine, but roughly 1 in 4 people use the bathroom in a convenience store. So that's essentially their front door. Their front door is not the front door. It's when they come out of the bathroom because now they're ready to shop. And what this woman said was, the first thing I realized is when I walked out of our bathroom, that's where all the stuff I didn't know how to sell was there. It was oil or gloves or different merchandise, things like that. Just extra stuff that's just not obviously flying off the shelves. So she reimagined everything. She took down the size of her shelves. She painted the word food above the food service area. And she actually had a longtime customer say, I didn't even know you sold food. And it's just that visual connection. Sometimes it's verifying something that you may already have sort of figured out via technology, but how do you use visuals to confirm it and just have that audit and see how they link up and what you're missing?
Yeah.
So I think that is something that you see in our industry that can play dividends.
Yeah. And I want to touch on what you're saying there about research for a moment, because research is scary. And particularly when you get a quote from someone and they're like, sure, $150,000, I can answer that question for you. And so many business owners broadly, they shy away from it. They try to avoid research because of that fear of this cost. And I really don't even know what value this is going to bring. But the reality is that, and I'm a really strong believer in, research is all around you. You actually don't have to spend $1 to know what is happening. There comes a time and a place where obviously you need to get a lot more richer insights. You got to get into the nitty gritty. Absolutely. But if you are at zero, you don't need to spend any money to learn about your customer, to learn about your brand. You literally have a research system already built into your business. And all it takes to start is just to sit and watch, just observe. And right from that experience, you'll immediately start to think about, well, you know what? Let me observe people coming out of the bathroom. Let me observe people when they are buying the food. Let me observe someone evaluating the snack aisle. And maybe I'm going to interrupt them and say, I've noticed you've been looking at this for 3 minutes. You've picked up the Ritz Bits, then you looked at the Oreo cookies, you looked at the pretzels. Why are you debating? Like, what is it here that you don't have that you wish you had? Find out what that customer thinks in that moment of purchase, in that moment of experience. It literally costs you no money, but will pay an outrageous amount of dividends.
You also see the human connection with, I'm less likely to go to the barber shop, but people don't usually cheat on their barbers or their hairstylist because you have a conversation with them and they ask you, what are you doing and all that. So there is that human connection. I know we promised 3 tips. I'm guessing with the head wizard at the Clarity Wizard that this one somewhat involves clarity.
Yeah. The trick about clarity is that it is really the output of spending time organizing your thoughts. That really is all that clarity is. And the last tip I have for your audience is that in order to get through the process of understanding, or not even understanding, but having a point of view on who the right ideal audience is, what it is you offer that is better than another retailer, and why someone should care, what is relevant to them, you need to start by just documenting what you know. Just start there. What do I know to be true? I know that I have 12% repeat business. Goodness, I hope it's greater than that. I know that I have 3 competitors on each of the corners around me. I know that the majority of my business is happening between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Document what you know to be true today. The second part then becomes, what don't I know that I need to know? So I know they're coming in between 6:30 and 9:30, but you know what? I'm not really sure what the makeup of these people are and how they are different than the ones who show up at lunchtime or the ones on the evening commute home. I don't know how they're different from each other. I don't know why the energy drinks are not selling as quickly as juices. I can't figure it out. These are the questions that will come out of you documenting what you know to be true. The questions will start to appear before you. And once you have a set of questions, now you're in a position to go figure out what those answers are. Not only figure out what the answers are, but also prioritize the questions. You might be finding yourself today sitting there thinking, goodness, I'm really worried about X, Y, Z. I've been worrying about it and thinking about it. Once you start to document what you know, document the questions that are open, you might say to yourself, oh my God, why am I worried about that? That's actually not as important as ABC. I didn't even realize it because I hadn't spent the time to think about what I know and what I don't know. And it will help you to prioritize the things you've got to go figure out with the intent to develop a brand positioning, a brand promise that will always show up in front of that customer. Once you've defined that brand promise, you're going to start to see all the places and ways in which you can double down on that. Wow, that uniform actually is not doing justice to my promise. You know what? The color of this floor and the griminess of it, this is not supporting my brand promise. You know what? I've heard about some new products. If I brought those in, my brand promise would really start to come to life if I've got a set of all new products that people are excited to do. Again, once you start to figure out what that promise is, you'll really start to realize where there are places and spaces and in messaging that you can start to live into that. But it starts with just organizing your thoughts. That is really what clarity is just organizing what it is you think, what you think you need, and then how to go about solving for it.
So I just need to mention that the NACS brand promise. A couple of years ago, we went on a journey to relook at our logo and relook at everything. We have a vision, we have a mission. Can you remember a vision? Can you remember a mission? It's a little tough. But right above my desk, and a lot of people's desks, there's the brand promise of NACS. It is an industry champion that connects and inspires our members to deliver tomorrow's convenience today and every day. We get that. Broad enough, narrow enough. The brand promise is a great guide for how do you shop and how do you communicate within the organization. So you have added a lot of clarity for folks listening. Yeah, it wasn't deliberate in how to think about the promise, because when you have a promise with a customer and the customer gets that promise, there's a relationship and it's going to continue as long as you keep your end of the promise.
Yeah, 100%. And I love this idea you're offering of documenting the promise and making it visible to everyone. What an impactful thing for a customer to get to your door and see a sign that says, we promise that your experience is this, and you're always going to have that. Immediately they're set up to look for, oh, you know what? That's true. I didn't notice this. You're right. I'm seeing this. And it allows them to be open to receive that promise and to start to acknowledge and recognize it. The trick with that is, A, you need to know that you've got the right promise. You've got to do that clarity work up front. And then B, you have to have the confidence in it that you can deliver it. So don't put on your door, we promise this is always going to be the lowest prices ever, forever, and the rest of time. You can't deliver on that. And you shouldn't, honestly. Price should not be part of your promise unless you're Walmart. Otherwise, you leave price out. But publishing it and talking about it at full voice is the best way to say, I am confident I can deliver on this, and you should expect this from me. And it adds a lot to how people think about your brand.
One quick example, and then give you the last word. There's a couple convenience store chains, hundreds of locations. And in the bathroom, there's a promise that says our bathrooms are exceedingly clean. And if you don't agree, here is my number, and it's the number of the CEO. And I've asked a couple of them, I said, how many calls does the CEO get? And it's surprisingly little, but usually there's only ever one call from a store. And then that promise is reinvigorated, because that's saying you stand for something. And it's also giving somebody a chance to say, hey, I'm not sure I agree with you here. Let's fix it. So that's, I think, a nice connection point in all this.
Yes. I love that. And I guess the last word on brand promise and positioning in the convenience store channel is that, unlike many other places, you have a very unique opportunity to develop a promise and execute it, because you have a shopper that comes in with a very clear job. This person is coming in, they're doing what they got to do, and they're getting out. No one is browsing at C-stores and spending 30 minutes there. And so that experience needs to match the energy and the moment in time for that person. That doesn't mean that you don't have time or opportunity to provide something that is going to require more time and more time in your store. But what it does mean is that every point has got to hit it. I need to hit it at every moment. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm going to grab a bag of chips. I'm going to go to the cashier, and then I'm walking out the door. I've got 4 points to touch them. And that brand promise has got to hit on each one of those points. And if you're able to do that in a way that's unique to you, positioning comes to life. And that ultimately is the way to connect with a customer's hearts and mind. So you've got that long-term relationship with them, the way many other brands have been able to do. It is absolutely doable and actually quite exciting in the C-store channel, I think, to create a promise and an experience that way. I would run towards that challenge rather than away from it.
So how do listeners run towards the Clarity Wizard and learn more?
Yes, I have a special page set up for all my podcast appearances. And it is right on my website. It is theclaritywizard.com/podcast. But I am also present on LinkedIn. I'm often posting content, so you can find me there, Kathy Guzmán Galloway on LinkedIn. And I'd love to connect with you and keep the conversation going on LinkedIn. Please do reach out.
Kathy, thank you for connecting with us today. It was great talking with you and learning about the importance of brand positioning and how we make it all work. So once again, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.